started? All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the final FinCom meeting of March 2025. Today is Thursday, March 27th, and we are meeting at Town Hall. Sarah Sullivan is participating remotely, and all other members of the commission are here in person. First order of business is approval of minutes from our meeting last week on March 20th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Alan, second by Eric. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll have to poll. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're getting into the real meat of the meeting. It is to vote on the FY26 operating budget. Jeff, would you like to help us organize what exactly we need to vote on tonight?
Yeah, so you'll be voting on the total budget, so you're gonna vote on,
But we need to vote on each piece, right? So,
correct,
yeah.
correct. So you'll vote on the, we have,
General government, schools, facilities shared, right? That's the four categories.
those four, yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So, in our, like, this, I believe these numbers, well, actually, I guess I don't know. If we look at page 8 of section 1 that Jeff had provided us with, in the right-hand column, I believe those are the most recent numbers. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
let me just get to that, 'cause I didn't print those separately, but.
What page is that? 8?
Yeah.
Is there a digital copy of this in the,
Yes, it was.
Yes, it's in the Google Drive.
okay, thank you.
Which one are you looking at? You're looking at that one. 5 years, it's not that, it's the. It's a good hard copy too. Just so we're all on the same page.
Do we know which folder it is in? I'm sorry, guys. It's
should
not in
be-
this tonight.
Oh, it's not under March 27th?
If you,
I don't see it under March 27th. I was just looking.
it was,
Deborah thinks it is.
Okay.
It's section 1 of
Is
the
this-
budget.
It's called Section 1 Budget Book.
It came from Jeff O'Neill.
All I see is section 1 dashboards and trends.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
All right, sorry.
That's okay. We're just looking at page 8 of that because it has.
Thank you. Sorry
list.
for the confusion.
No problem.
So just the only update is there's no changes in the shared costs. We're going to go with the health insurance number that's in there. After looking at the various participation between us, light department, and water sewer budget, we do believe that there's enough in there to cover.
Okay.
There is a little bit of built-in. If there are some significant changes, we will have to address that during the year. But right now, there's a little bit of play. We've got maybe 3 or 4 potential for changes. If we get more than that, obviously we may have an issue, but I think we're going to be good. So we're going to go with that number.
All right, so at this point, you're not expecting that there'll be a change at town meeting, and any change that occurs will happen during the year.
Correct,
And
yeah.
we'll
So
have
by
to
town
make an
meeting, we're still
adjustment
going
then.
through open enrollment, so we won't have all the final numbers. If there's a change, it will have to be during the year next year. But again, at this point, based on the projections,
Yeah.
we should be covered.
Yeah, I mean, we probably know by the fall, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. We'll know by the
Yeah,
fall.
so we
yeah.
could
Yeah.
make whatever changes we have to
know
make
by
at that
January,
point.
Correct.
July 1st, right?
No, we're going to go into the year with these numbers.
Okay.
So yes,
Right.
we will get the numbers. But again, there's changes throughout the year as well.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
coming and
No, I
going, so.
understand that.
But
Yeah.
Anne's right that open enrollment will be complete by
Right.
July 1. That will give us an estimate. But then, of
It will
course,
give us a rough, yeah, it's not gonna give
things
us a rough.
still can
The
move.
only estimate we're really gonna have is when the deductions start coming out and people start paying for it.
right, yeah.
And again, so what I'm basing this on, like I said, there's a little bit of room in there for some changes. But they're, again, we're gonna be razor thin. We won't be putting excess into OPEB next year, most likely.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
All right. So the general government number that we have here is 43,187,399. Is that the exact number that we looked at in the budgets that you gave us a couple
Yes.
of weeks ago when Tony was here?
Yes, nothing should have changed.
Okay. Let me just double check that I've got that number. Okay. Oh, this wants to be slow. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. So that meeting was the 18th, right?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now, so.
Thanks. General government PDF. Let's just, so that number is, oh, wait a minute, that's not. This number maybe doesn't have a total for all of general government. Does this document not have a total? The one that we had on the 13th, or the 18th, I'm sorry.
I don't remember which one we've had.
All right, let me just verify. Because it's got like the cultures and like each of the departments, or each of the main categories, but it doesn't seem to have a general government total in this document that I'm looking at.
So you're looking at the one with the UMass code, that, the summary by,
No, I was looking at like what the line by line budget that we got. I wanted to make sure that that met this number. Let's go with the line by let's see, there's this budget summary.
so you should have.
Well, on the first page of Tony's of his presentation, it's that 43,187,399.
Okay.
So I believe if you look at the first
That's
page,
not on the line by line. I understand what you're saying, Maya, but his presentation has the same number.
but if you're looking at the document, there should be the summary page that lists general government, public safety, infrastructure, health. and-
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
not,
So if you-
there's
if you title
no
one
sum there.
Correct, but if you sum up 1 through 6, that is 43,187,399.
That was my question. All right, great, thank you. All right, let's work from that though. Okay, so the category 1 general government was $7,077,628.
That's correct.
And that is divided between salaries and expenses and capital, as we saw in our budget. So I think our vote includes those main categories, correct?
Your vote will include everything, yes.
Right. But I just want to make it clear that like that's what we're voting on, is not just the total for that category 1, but that we are voting for the numbers that were given to us for those 3 main categories.
Okay, and which categories were they?
Okay.
The,
Everything in category 1 of general government, like, which is, maybe we need
Do
to.
we have to vote salary and operating expenses separately? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's what I'm
Maya?
asking.
I don't think you have to vote them separately. You can, if there's a question on the line item, you can bring it up, but I think you can vote in total.
Yeah,
You're going to be recommending the full budget.
Right.
Unless you have line item questions.
right. So, Erica, did you find another copy
No.
of that number?
Yeah, no, I'm just, this sheet here, the grand total matches here, the schools matches, and, so yeah, so that, the schools match. So now I'm trying to find these ones, because this says shared cost 59 million, and this says
Includes
shared.
facilities.
Okay,
That's
so
the
46
problem.
plus 9 is 54, right, or 55? So where's the extra 4? That's what I was just, hold out the calculator for.
You have the other amounts to be raised, the cherry sheet assessments, the
That-
off-seats.
I think
offsets,
that
and
may
override.
include some of the fixed liabilities also. probably, is
So
that the 4 million?
That's exactly what I just
Yeah,
said. So the cherry
okay.
sheet assessments, the offsets, and
Yeah.
the overlay,
Okay.
Okay,
We're all
so
in.
this gets
So
you
that's
to
all-
60,
plus that one should get you to the number.
that's 60, and I've got... Okay, so general government is 43, so something in here must be less. That gets you to 30, 37, 40, so there's something in here that goes in there.
In where?
Okay, all right, so add
The
up,
1 through 6 adds up to the 43,197.
that adds up to 43, all
Yeah.
right.
So then if you want to look at your 46,901, 808, plus your 9339, 830, plus your 3970, 605, is your 60,212, 243.
So this number plus that number.
Correct.
Okay, so here's, did you get your question answered?
I'll keep going.
Okay, because I have another question. When I'm looking back at the detailed budget that we reviewed on the 18th, if I look at the general government total, it says here that the FY26 request is $7,088,378. But if we look at that summary sheet, it says it's like $11,000 less. Why doesn't it match?
I don't know what you had. I don't remember what we had.
Can you give us can you send us the current numbers, the current detail that adds up to this number? The 7,
Yeah,
okay.
it shouldn't have changed, so I'm not sure what we're looking at in terms of the past.
It says February 11th, GG budget.pdf. That was what was sent to us.
Yeah, I think this sheet we had at the previous meeting is missing the cherry sheet assessments. This is the 1182, which is these two.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have the 27.
Should be in.
Deborah, could you maybe go back to the March 18th meeting?
Yeah, so it's
And pull
buried
up-
in there. Yep.
Was it March 18th? I thought it was March
Yes,
18th.
it was
Yes,
March
it
18th.
was.
Okay, so, and pull up the budget, the budget document that says March 6th.
59030
Yep.
is the shared costs,
I think that's the one
Facilities.
that,
plus your cherry sheets.
Yeah.
It's the budget March
And then this is on
6,
top of that.
That's on
2025.
top of that, correct, so that's not.
Right.
added to
So you
your
get
budget
60
book.
million.
Correct.
okay, and
So
then
then
if
this
we
and this,
scroll
that.
down in that, Deborah, till we get to the first point where there's a total. Keep going.
All right, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, there. That's the
Page
gen,
8, right? Yeah.
okay. So I opened up a PDF and I'm looking at a different number. Okay, maybe I'm looking at the wrong. I think maybe there was an older one in here and then a newer one that got replaced. Okay,
This one's March 6th, I think you did February.
okay.
Because I'm looking at a fiscal year 26 operating budget summary by UMass Code, and that number matches.
Okay, great. That was what I wanted to confirm. Okay, great.
But that's from the March 18th meeting
Right,
folder.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
I think there's more than one budget summary in that folder, so we might need to go back and check that. But, or maybe I had some old version in a cache or something. Okay, but now this is good. It's lined up.
March 6, 2025.
Right, so we are looking at a total of $628 for everything
Yes.
that falls under general government code of 1, which is obviously not everything that we include in general, what we sort of describe as general government, but this is like basically all the stuff in town hall.
All the time, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that vote would then encompass like all the numbers that are in bold, all the like operating expenses and salaries and stuff like that for each of those categories.
Right, we have to go down some more because we have to get to 43.
Salaries.
So-
No, I want to do a vote on this.
Oh,
And then I want to do a vote on each of these because these are all going to be separate votes at town meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the
Oh,
point,
okay.
That was
yeah,
my question.
yeah, I mean,
I was afraid that if we were going for the whole
No,
thing,
no,
I was
no,
like,
no.
Please.
But I
don't
wanted
do
to
that
say,
me.
even within this, like, when we say 7.077 million,
There's.
that also is taking into account all those bold numbers.
Right.
All the accounts.
yeah,
Yeah.
so essentially, you know, what we're doing is we're voting on the bottom line, but contingent on voting on that bottom line is we're voting the individual categories in each
Account.
section. Account. I mean, as an example, there's a separate one for selectmen. You know, you're
Right.
voting salaries for selectmen. You're voting salaries. You're voting operating expenses for selectmen. There's a line item for treasurer, where you're voting the salary for treasurer. You're voting the operating expenses for treasurer.
Right.
And what that means is that the general, the selectmen and the the treasurer can't mix and match their salaries and their operating expenses.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, would someone like to make a motion to approve this Category 1 general government budget?
So moved.
All right, thank you,
Second.
Alan. Seconded by Ann. Any further discussion?
Do we have to specify that we're voting based on those bolded lines, or do you think it's understood?
I think
Should
that's,
that be-
yeah, I think that is part, Alan intended that to be part of the motion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, Sarah, that I think will be explained at town meeting when people are asked to vote. It'll be explained to them exactly what they are voting on and what they're approving, so that there's no.
Okay. Wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and even for the purposes of general government, so there's no confusion as to what we're voting for and what buckets of money they can use during the year.
Okay, I just didn't know if we needed to word that into
Yeah.
our motion, that's all I was
As it
asking.
has.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good with that then for this. We will assume that that was all part of the motion. Deborah, if you have any questions about that, you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so we will record that.
You want to vote?
Any further discussion?
Oh, yep, sorry.
Yeah, all right, now we need to vote. Sarah?
Yes,
Ann?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's unanimous. Okay. Deborah, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down a little bit to the next category, which is public safety, which should come out to 21,676,698. Keep going?
Yes.
Yeah, keep going. Like there it
Right
is.
there.
21,676,698. Okay, so that matches what we had on the summary sheet. Just making sure we're all
Yep.
everything's lining up here. All right. Any discussion about the public safety budget?
No.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion on this?
So moved.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Anne. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Sarah?
yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. Thank you. 3 is not next because that's school, so let's jump down to 4 in this. Yeah.
More.
Right there.
Yep, there we go. It should be 9,645,615. Yes, that
Yep.
it lines up. And all of the subtotals along the way. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan. Is there a second?
Yes. Second.
Thank you, Anne. All right, any further discussion? All right, sorry, I got a poll. Sarah?
Yes, sorry.
Sarah?
Yes,
Okay, Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, that's unanimous. Next one is Health and Human Services, which should be 1,695,400.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Is there a motion there?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan. Second by
So moved.
by Anne. All right. Any discussion? Okay. Sarah?
yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. And then the last one for general government is category 6, culture and recreation, for a total of $3,092,059, and all of the subtotals included in that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Anne. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so great. We have approved the general government budget with a total amount of $43,187,399. Next would be the school budget. School budget total is $65,292,117. The school committee did vote unanimously on this budget last night, and they have not made any significant changes since they last came to speak with us.
Mhm.
Good.
And remember, on this, we just vote bottom line.
Mhm.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the school budget, $65,292,117.
All right. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Anne. Any discussion on this? And Teresa Stewart is here if we have questions about what they voted on last night.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa. Thanks for joining us. Any questions for the schools or about any discussion about the school budget? All right, we'll put it to a vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Facilities budget. That was the document we looked at last week.
Last week, yeah.
And so, does this number here match the number we looked at last week? The
Yes.
9,339,830. All
Does.
right. Thank you for verifying that for us, Jeff. Is there a motion to approve with
Yeah.
the sublines?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan. Second by.
Anne.
Thank you, Anne. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay, that is unanimous. Those are the main things in the budget, but we still have the shared costs. With this breakout, and this kind of is the question we were asking, is like, what are we rolling into shared costs? This breakout that we are looking at here includes debt service, the high school and middle school debt exclusions, the regional schools costs, the retirement and pension, workers' compensation, health insurance, Medicare, capital equipment, liability insurance, reserve fund, and transfers to permanent funds, for a total of $46,901,808. Is there a motion to approve this?
That doesn't include debt service or regional schools? Is that the only things that aren't included in that?
No, it does include debt service and regional schools.
Doesn't include cherry sheets and the overlay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me make a motion to approve shared costs for $46,901,808 in accordance with the schedule in front of us for shared costs.
All right, thank you. Alan, is there a second? Thank you,
second.
Anne. All right, do we have questions about this? I know there were some questions.
What's under the transfers of permanent funds? Which funds?
Stabilization, compensated absences, OPEB.
Okay.
And we reduced OPEB from last year, which is why this
25,000.
number is lower.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was
Did you-
125. I think we knocked it down to what, 5?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's going downhill. from
Right.
Yep.
the 23, FY '23 budget.
Yeah.
I mean, if everyone feels more comfortable, we could have more of a conversation about this section 1 and review where we're at before we finalize our vote on shared costs. We do not have to do that. We haven't really discussed shared costs in nearly the same level of detail that we've discussed the other budgets. So if that's the will of the committee, we can table this until we have further discussion.
I mean, well, again, shared costs are pretty much set for the most part, and the only ones which we really have some ability to deal with would be capital, reserve fund, and transfers to permanent funds. And I think we've discussed all of those. So, I mean, my preference would be to vote on this today.
Oh, I definitely wasn't proposing that we not vote on it today.
Okay.
I was just thinking that, like, you and I sat in on budget balancing,
Okay.
and we talked a lot
Right.
about some of this.
Yeah.
And so if Sarah and Ann and Eric have
Okay.
additional questions.
Gotcha, okay.
Capital equipment, that's like the cruisers and so forth?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, we pool together all the different departments'
Correct.
vehicles and put in that line.
Correct. Yeah.
It also
The
includes
annual
some school.
School buses,
stuff,
yeah.
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 Answered another question I had,
Yeah.
so good.
I mean, doing it that way gives a little bit of flexibility, so if one vehicle is $5,000 more than you anticipate, you have the ability to fund it, whereas another one would be $5,000 less than what you anticipated. Because
Correct.
it's in that one bucket.
Yeah.
If we're approving a specific list of vehicles, with a total bottom line for all of those vehicles combined.
Yeah, but it's in each individual
Yeah.
budget as well that we've
Yeah.
approved. So it's in there, it's kind of
Yeah.
specified, so it's not just used for anything. There are
Okay.
purposes that are used annually.
Right, it's
Right.
not a slush fund, but it is
Okay.
true that we're saying, like, okay, we're planning to buy these roughly 10 vehicles for this amount of money, and the way town meeting approves it, we're gonna approve the bottom line for that, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And the health insurance is the right number, right?
As of right now, yes, that's the right number.
So don't hold your breath, okay?
Amazing, in less than 5 years, it's gone up over $5 million, about $5 million, so.
Well, I think that's the point we're making. If you add up the growth in that and retirement, you get $3 million, and you compare that to the growth in the tax levy up at the top, and you get
That's
$3 million.
$3 million, yeah.
Right.
That's an important point that everybody needs to
Yeah.
understand, that
And we don't get enough additional state aid to make up the difference, unfortunately.
and that's why the reserve funds, among other things, are going down.
Yep.
Right. All right. Are we comfortable voting on this? We do have a motion on the floor, so we could vote, but if there are additional questions, or if we want to review other things before we vote, I'm open to that.
I think I'm good to go.
Okay, then I will call for a vote. Sarah? Sarah, on the motion of the $46,901,808?
Yes.
Thank you. Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes?
Chair votes yes. Sorry. I got out of my rhythm.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So I think that
One more.
those were the votes.
Do we need to vote on the stuff here?
No, it's statutory, so we have to.
That's
do this.
statutory?
Correct. The assessor give the overlay, and the state requires us to do the
Okay.
cherry sheets.
So no vote there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's all we have to vote on for. Well, we also need to vote on CPC. I can never remember if that's annual or special, but
Isn't that
Thank you.
December?
Yeah, that's the end.
Huh? Is that December that we?
No, I think
No,
they're coming
it's-
forward. They're coming forward.
right, we have it. It's in our packet here after the minutes.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
So
Okay.
I want to thank the capital, the Community Preservation Committee and Kristen Phelps in particular for putting together a very helpful report here. We are anticipating, let's see, for the current fiscal year FY25, we will be collecting $909,627. I'm sorry, this is the FY26 projection. $909,627 from Norwood residents, and the estimated state match would be $141,000 for a total of a little over $1 million. And then they are proposing a number of projects as we reviewed when they came here, but just as a reminder, there's the Community Housing Service Organization funding for the year 3 of participation for $14,000. Norwood Housing Authority, the Washington Heights roof replacement for $300,000. That they've proposing to break that down of $100,000 from the Community Housing Fund Reserve and $200,000 from the undesignated fund reserve. The National Register nomination for Highland Cemetery and St. Gabriel's Chapel, that is $24,000 from the Historic Resources Fund Reserve. Work at the Balch School and the Elliott Field ADA ramp, for $175,000 from the undesignated reserve fund. The Elliott Field feasibility study for $25,000 from the undesignated reserve fund. The land conservation fund transfer for $10,000 from the open space and recreation fund reserve. The Guild Pond feasibility study for $200,000, broken out as $100,000 from the Open Space and Recreation Fund Reserve and $100,000 from the Undesignated Fund Reserve, for a total recommendation of $748,000 from CPA funds, which will actually be a little less than they took in this past year.
Yes, the proposed spending is less than the estimated revenue, and after the proposed spending, there will be money left in each one of the 4 accounts. So,
Yes.
I mean, should we first vote on the total of $1,050,000 and some change, but, you know, consistent with the individual buckets that they proposed?
Oh, yes. Good
it's actually
point, Alan.
748. Yep.
Yes. Would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the addition to the CPC reserve funds of $1,050,730, specifically community housing, $105,073, historic resources, $105,073, open space and recreation, $105,073, unrestricted, $682,975, and administrative costs, $52,536, which again should add up to $1,050,730.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, and then we have, I think the next thing is these other tables are informational, but then there is the last table that includes the recommendations for appropriations from the community preservation funds.
Should we just have a single motion to approve?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the CPC project funding recommendations in accordance with the summary table for a total of $748,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay, so we have unanimously approved the CPC recommendations, took care of that. Took care of everything we needed to do for the operating budget. Jeff, did we
Yes.
miss anything?
Nope, I just was going through the motion. It's from last meeting. We're good.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we are good on all of that. So now we come to special town meeting articles. We don't necessarily have to take a final vote on this at this point because the warrant isn't even
Correct, it's still in
approved or
flux.
anything like that. So, but I think there's a lot to discuss here. Bob Donnelly did reach out to me and, or responded to my request and stated that, he would be recommending that that the FinCom be listed on the agenda for the, Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, April 8th. You will realize that that is the day after the town election. So it's unclear what the makeup of the board will be at that time. I was not planning to post that as a specific FinCom meeting. It wasn't going to be like a joint meeting. It's more of an opportunity for one or two representatives from the FinCom to go and share our thoughts with the Board of Selectmen, specifically around things that we would like to see on the warrant, and maybe an opportunity to talk a little bit about how our concerns for the budget long-term, and how we would recommend spending free cash. I actually personally have a conflict on April 8th, but Sarah has said that she would be able to attend that meeting.
I also have a conflict. I have to be Uber services to the back and forth from the airport that day, so
Okay.
that takes precedence.
Did they tip well?
I'm flying in the day before. Do you want to do it 2 days in a row?
Whatever it takes.
Anne or Eric, if either of you would like to join Sarah at that meeting,
Sure.
just let me know.
Either, but not both.
Well, you can't both engage in the conversation.
Right.
You could both be sitting, you could both be sitting in the room, certainly. It's a public meeting.
I would like to hear the conversation.
Right.
That's what I wanted to.
Maybe I'll listen to it on TV and then I won't be tempted to say something.
Although
Sarah, I'll come with you.
although they may ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll go. I'll help you, Sarah.
but I do think that it would be appropriate for us to draft a memo that we could send to the Board of Selectmen in advance of their meeting.
I think it's a good idea.
And this was actually Sarah's idea. I think it's an excellent idea. And so we would need to get that done by a week from tomorrow, so that it's in their packets before the meeting. So I would like to take some input from all of you tonight about what we would like to say, what we're thinking. I can start to draft a memo. I can send it out to all of you, and Sarah and I can compile that, and we'll share that with the Board of Selectmen in advance of their meeting.
That memo would include our suggestion that certain items be deferred until the fall, right?
If that's
I
our
would
recommendation,
suggest that it do
yes.
that, yes.
Yeah.
To show a bigger picture.
Right.
So we're not just saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that we want to have a memo that just says, this is what we'd like to see in May. I think this is
Right.
what we're looking at, bigger picture, what our longer term concerns are, and therefore, based on all of that, these would be our recommendations for the spring and possibly expectations of what might happen in the fall.
Right.
Well, because I think at our last meeting, we discussed maybe not putting money into stabilization in the spring, but it wasn't something we wanted to take off the table. Correct? We wanted to reconsider that in the fall.
Yep.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that we need to, and I don't know how to I don't know how to say this eloquently, yes would be the word, but we have concerns that if it's in free cash, that whomever is first in line will to request it. We want to make sure there's prioritization, I guess is what I would say. Like that's a big concern. That's what I feel like has been a big concern of the Finance Commission. We don't just want to spend it because it's in the bank. We
Right.
want to be very, I don't know what's the right word,
Conservative about where we put our money.
Yeah,
Right.
and with a long-term focus as opposed
Right.
to simply
Yeah.
a immediate
Yeah.
focus.
Just because we don't put it in stabilization in the spring doesn't mean
We can spend it.
we wouldn't strongly consider that in the fall.
Right.
And again, by the fall, we'll have a new free cash number. So-
Right.
And again, nobody can spend the money between the two meetings without another meeting, so it's not like that money's gonna disappear. It's gonna be sitting there, the free cash will sit there that we have if we don't use it now. So,
We'd be sitting there, but be looking at it and trying to get it.
It'll be
I know-
burning a hole in people's pockets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel strongly that we have to, vote on articles to establish a special capital stabilization fund as well as to appropriate a dollar amount for that. I mean, other communities do it, as Jeff has pointed out, there are concerns with putting money into the regular stabilization account and taking it out
Right.
for projects, even though we may feel it makes sense. I mean, other people may not understand the process that we're using, and it could hurt us down the road. So, since we have such a large amount of free cash, I think it's not sound fiscal policy to not put a certain amount of money away for future expenses, such as capital. We're not necessarily identifying a particular capital project. It could be a general government project, it could be a school project, or it could be a little bit of both. But I think we have to do that. And at some point,
Yeah.
we're also going to have to, not at this meeting necessarily, but I think may go into, how we want to look at things, is what we want to do with the surplus money that we're going to have on the bond issue related to the Coakley project. There will be a substantial amount of money. There are needs, both on the school side as well as the town side, and I think we're going to have those discussions at some point when we know how much money is going to be available, from that bucket of money.
Can I just ask a question about, I think you had sent out a memo about that, and I wanted to just check that I understood it correctly. The voters approved an override to pay the debt service for the Coakley Middle School project.
Correct.
And only the Coakley Middle School project.
correct.
We sold bonds for the expected amount of that project. So we have the money in the bank.
Right.
Now, if as is expected, we end up with money left over, the options would be, sounds like, one would be just leave it in the bank, have it earn, I guess the idea was it was going to earn the same amount of interest that we're paying, so it just kind of washes out. That's one option. The second option, is there an option to basically reduce the amount of the override by that amount, to
No.
just make it go away? That's not an
No,
option.
so it's not an option, so you
Because
sold
you
the
can't
bonds
undo
already.
the bonds,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
You
is that
sold
the
the bonds,
long-term
and that money,
bonds?
Okay.
even leaving it in the bank is going to be frowned upon.
Okay.
So it is, the state does say, once you deem the project completed, that has to be used for another project of the same
Right.
length, so
But we,
25 years.
but
So
the override money could not be used to pay for it.
we cannot, I know there's been statements out there to say, let's give it back, do something, that money has been sold, we're in possession of that. You can't refund those bonds, you're sitting on those excess proceeds.
So-
So they have to be used for another capital project.
So the thing that would make the most sense financially would be to use that bonded capacity, because going out to the market, get new bonds would be at a higher rate. So if the rate we're paying on those is less than or equal to what you get on the market at the time, it would make sense to use that money. On the other hand, if it was higher than we could get on the market at the time, it might not make as much problem, other than the
Yeah, and
frowning
again,
upon just sitting on it.
again, we've got, as Alan mentioned, there's I don't want to
Couple
say
of
unlimited,
years.
but there's a lot of demand out there for capital projects, so.
Understood,
That
I'm
money's
just
gonna be
saying.
eaten up, yeah, that money will be eaten up fairly quickly as well.
And, you know, we're paying for that right now, so we
Correct.
may as well get use out of it.
Right. But the debt service is going to go in the budget somewhere.
Yeah, yes. Well, I mean,
Well-
If we
maybe-
did something new,
Right, unless it's used for Coakley.
yeah.
If it's used for the Willet roof, it'd have to be paid for by some other funding, which presumably is the debt service account in the budget.
Well, that
Unless
debt
we
service
get a
is
grant.
already in there, so that debt service is already fully baked into the budget.
Right, but we can't use the override money for it, we have to use the regular tax levy for it.
No, we can, once the project is deemed complete, that, say it's $8 million, whatever
Yeah.
that number's gonna be.
Right.
Yeah.
That $8 million is then available to be purposed to a new capital project.
Understood, but paying the debt service on the $8 million,
We're already paying it.
and you can charge that off to the override?
It's already, so we have our debt schedule for the override funds, for the
Right.
Coakley bonds.
Okay.
That's already baked in. So we have $8 million right now in your savings account, if you want to call it that. And again, this
Right.
is not the right terminology, but to try to make it simple. You have $8 million. So if we decide to do 2 roofs and they happen to cost $8 million, we can use those funds. We have to check with the state to see if we have to do a borrowing with that. So it may be a number of items that we end up doing. So that's
Right.
still a little bit of clarification that needs to be made, but we're not gonna, that 8 million isn't just gonna sit there, that's gonna be used.
Oh, I understand, the question is
And your
who's
debt service
paying
is
for it?
already, it's already in there in your
Right.
override.
Okay, but if you go to the voters and say, I want an override to pay for this project, are we really allowed to then use the proceeds of that to pay for a different project
Yes.
that was not on the ballot?
The state of Massachusetts allows you to repurpose excess override funds.
And still use the override income to pay for it?
Correct.
Okay, that's not what I got from the memo, I got the opposite,
So,
okay,
yeah,
so
but that's what it is.
maybe, okay.
I think
Yeah.
the opposite is in the bond market, obviously, when you're buying these bonds, you're buying it for that project. So again, going forward, when we look at these projects, you know, it's unless something, and in this case, I know the fear was that the interest rates were going to rise.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, you don't really go into a project and borrow 100% of the proceeds. You're going to have some
You
stag.
do bands usually, and, yeah.
Little bands, or you schedule it out. You know, this one could have been 30 million, 20 million, whatever it may have been.
Right.
We
but
just
again, I
didn't
think-
foresee that the state was going to increase
Yeah,
their
that's
reimbursement.
the other piece,
That
that's
was the
correct.
big surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem to sort of keep the faith with the people that voted for it, that do you want to use it for something as close to what it was originally intended for as possible? In my
What-
mind, then anyway.
Whatever we use it for,
Right.
in order to appropriate funds for it, it will have to go to town meeting.
Of course, but
Right,
I'm
so,
thinking.
so it's not like Jeff is gonna say like, oh, I like this new project,
Yeah,
let's
no,
just
no,
do
no,
this.
Yeah, no, we
right?
have to go to town meeting, but I'm thinking the idea would be, I mean, I would be more comfortable with using it for, say, another school building roof as opposed to, say, a fire truck or the town hall or something like that.
Again,
just
it's got to be a
because
category that fits into the 25-year
Right,
bond,
yeah.
too,
and
so that's limited.
something
So
like a
it's not
school
gonna-
building would presumably be in that category.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, Jeff, we know we have to go to town meeting. Does this have to go back to the voters at all?
No, I'll clarify that, but I believe town meeting is the right
Solely
legislative body for
te-
that.
So
You know what, I'm
solely-
sorry, can
We still have a
we're
long time
way
too,
off
so
our,
yeah.
our
Okay,
agenda,
yeah,
can we
alright.
table
We're
this
not
discussion?
talking as you know,
Yeah.
it's a year, at least a year, if not 2 out, so.
Closer
Got
to
it.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all
All right.
right. Let's just refocus our attention on the special town meeting warrants.
Okay.
So let's see, in this section 1 packet that Jeff gave us, there was a page, is it page 11?
Yeah.
That had some proposals. This is not what we have to do, but it would be something for us to talk about. This does not include a capital reserve fund. The more I've thought about it, we have a lot of goals here, I think, with what we'd like to do with this money. We want to set ourselves up well to cover some of the expenses that we know are coming, but we also want to allow ourselves some flexibility because it's unclear what exactly is coming at us. I think that a capital reserve fund could actually do that for us. We know that there is capital coming. They're not like wish we could have projects.
Right.
They're major, we must do
Ambulances,
projects.
fire trucks.
and
Yeah,
roofs and things like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just foolish not to invest in, sealing up
Yeah.
your buildings. So I feel like a capital reserve fund could allow us to still have some flexibility to make it clear that this money is kind of earmarked for this, but we still have some flexibility. The pension reserve funding, I feel like, is a good idea, but our pension responsibility, we don't have to be fully funded for another 20 years, 10 years, something
We
like
just
that.
got approved, so our schedule's been approved for 2039.
Okay,
That's
so-
the full schedule going forward.
So roughly like 15 years that we have to do that. So in some ways, I feel like the $1 million isn't an immediate need. I do understand that it could give us some flexibility in terms of acting when the market is in a good place to act. So I'm up to, I'm open to conversation about that.
And again, that $1 million is just in there as a placeholder. It
Right.
has nothing
Yeah.
to do, we've never talked about it, it was just, okay, here's.
No, I
so,
appreciate
okay.
you having,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you putting it in there. I know that, right. So, feedback from the rest of the committee. What are you guys thinking and you would like to see on the, our request to the Board of Selectmen included compensated absences, capital outlay, or capital reserve fund, a pension reserve fund, special education stabilization fund, and did we maybe put general purpose stabilization in there as well?
I think so.
Yes, I believe we did.
Now, if we don't no longer think that it makes sense to allocate additional money to the general purpose stabilization in May, we can remove that from our request. And obviously, the warrant has not even been discussed.
Based on the feedback from the last meeting, it seemed like that was trending towards maybe waiting, so that's why I did not put it in here.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
want to make sure
Yeah.
that, are we all in agreement on that we want to
Yeah.
hold off on that?
Yep.
Feeling hasn't changed.
Yes.
Actually, you know what, I think we took a vote to put that list in front of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
So can someone make a motion to remove the general purpose stabilization from our list for May?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Just that, do we want to make any note that we would revisit it in the fall, or do we not want to do?
I would say the motion would be to reconsider in the fall.
Are you comfortable with that amendment, Alan?
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Any further discussion? Okay, so I'll put it to a vote. Sarah,
Yes,
Ann,
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, so that will be part of our memo, is that we respectfully rescind that request with the understanding that we would like to put it back in discussion in the fall. What about the special education reserve? I think we had stated before that we were in favor of that. The schools are suggesting $880,959, which would max out their allowable balance in that. Is that still something that we would like to recommend to the Board of Selectmen?
I would make a motion that we recommend that to the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All right.
Just one note, just so everybody's aware, that even if that money goes in there, they still have to come back for a vote to use that funds from the Board of Selectmen, so.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just
Yes,
as-
absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. Right, we've been contributing to that fund. We've talked about having to remove funds from that. We have never actually had to remove funds from that, but we do when we established the fund, it was clear that it would have to be a vote of Board of Selectmen and the school committee to access those funds. We have a motion and a second, right? Thank you. All right, let's vote on that. Sarah?
Okay.
yes,
Let's cover it again, just,
All right, this is the special education
Yeah.
reserve for $880,959 is
Okay.
our recommendation.
yep.
This is not our final vote for our recommendation to town meeting. This is our vote for what are we going to petition the Board of Selectmen for.
Yes.
Okay, so Sarah said yes right before we lost her. So,
Yeah.
Anne,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Okay. I wonder, is that
Is that
us?
Would be.
Dial in said. You're.
All right, hang on. Let me just reach out to. All right, sorry we lost you.
There she is.
There she is.
Okay, good.
You still picture that?
I think she's coming back in.
Oh.
Oh no. All right, having trouble on our end.
Nope, there
Can
she
you hear me
is.
now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
I was a yes at first, sorry.
We counted that because you had said yes before you you dropped off, but I think it was on our end, not on yours. Okay, so we definitely want to keep this one. Compensated absences. Would we like to recommend that a contribution be that we keep that on the warrant, or that we request that they put that on the warrant so that we can make an additional contribution out of free cash? Is there already some contribution in the operating
Yes,
budget?
125,000, yes.
Okay,
25, right?
125.
125.
Once we add that 125,000, do you know what the balance would be at that point? What we anticipate it being?
Oh, yeah, it's right on the bottom of that sheet. 2.1 million, so if we go in, we're earning a little bit of interest, we'll pay out a little bit, so you'll probably be right back at that 2.1 million.
Okay.
All depends, and we've been averaging about 300,000 the last couple of years of a payout of compensated absences, so.
I mean, on the other hand, it increases our free cash because using the compensated absences fund is an increase in free cash when everything is said and done.
Because you don't have to pull the
Pull
money to pay
from the
that.
various accounts, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's a wash.
I would make a motion that we continue to recommend that be on the warrant.
On the special town meeting warrant?
Yeah, with amount TBD.
Right.
Well, to be determined, okay.
Okay.
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear that. Was that a motion?
No, we haven't made a motion yet. Would you like to make a motion?
No, that was a
about-
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes, I move that we recommend that a contribution to the compensated absences fund be added to the warrant with an amount TBD, to be determined. So that's my motion. I need a second.
All right. Is there a
I'll second.
second? And seconding. Any further discussion?
We don't put the actual amounts on the warrant anyways,
No.
correct?
No.
We'll
No.
just put, okay. All right.
Yeah. So any further discussion on compensated absences, recommending that to the Board of Selectmen? All right, we'll take a vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. So that one's on. So then the two that I think we still need to discuss are capital reserve and pension. The Mass Health, or maybe we should also discuss the Mass Health and Medicaid, but that I think the schools have already requested be on the
Yeah.
warrant, and so I don't think we necessarily need to take a position on that right now.
Until we see the warrant.
So what's the other one? Capital and what?
Pension reserve
Pension.
fund.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's why I wanted to go through them one at a time. Let's talk about pension reserve fund first. So, Jeff, that would, if we were to put that on the warrant, that would probably involve 2 warrant articles, one to establish the fund
Yes.
and one to allocate money to it.
Correct, yes. Same thing with the capital. So both of these are 2 articles each,
Okay.
if you were proposing to fund it.
And how much
How many
did,
other communities have a pension reserve fund? Is that a common thing?
It's a good question. I don't know that.
Okay.
The way I looked at it, again, this is my suggestion. It was just, and I've said it before, it's just another tool in the toolbox. Because we do have some free cash, I'm not going to say a lot because we're using it.
Yeah.
But because we had some, it's another option to save some money for that pension. Again, it's our biggest liability. Obviously, OPEB is right there, but the pension is the one that's more important. It does handle with rating agencies, so the higher we can fund that, the quicker we can do that. It's good, but again, it's
I mean, but adding $1 million, I mean, how much does that really improve?
and again, that's just the number right now.
Yeah.
We can keep that, and we can keep that in the money market, so we earn a little bit, and you add to it every year. You
Yeah.
add to it if you have
Yeah.
another year like this. So again, we don't think we're going to, but if you do, there's your fund to put it away. So again, it's just
Yeah.
another option.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of setting up the program. I think regardless of what we do, I think we should recommend an article setting up a program. I think it gives you flexibility. How much I want to put into that, is another story.
And not something we need to take a
No.
position on right now.
No.
Yeah.
If we were to set up such a fund, who would have the authority to move the money into the pension fund?
We have a board, right, that does the pension work?
That's the pension board. So this is actually, the money would be invested with the treasurer. We'd be sitting there. So at some point, we would then be allowed to move it over to the pension fund.
Okay.
So I believe when you
So-
set the fund up, I believe it gives I will double check, but I believe it gives myself and or the treasurer, I think the treasurer ultimately, the decision to be able to move that money over to the pension fund.
To the actual
To be then
funds that
invested,
the
yeah,
people
to be,
pay?
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just didn't want to step on a bunch of people's toes.
All right.
No,
But
and again, I'm
I do
a
it
ex
too
officio
often.
member of that board too.
Yeah.
so-
Oh, okay,
Yes.
that's right.
But
I'm
what,
sorry.
but what use of that would do would really just be to reduce our liability for a subsequent year. So to take a little bit off the top so it's not as big a hit.
Correct, again, when
Yeah.
you do your actuarial report, you'll have the investment report, and then you'll have any funds that the town
Yeah.
may have in this, if it's approved fund,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. I mean, it's
Or-
not as if we put X dollars into this, it means instead of being 100% funded in 2039, which, is a moving target, it doesn't mean it's gonna be in 2037 as an example.
Correct,
Right,
correct.
yeah, okay.
Sarah?
Well, I guess, having sat here for months and talked about this free cash quite a bit, and we know this is an anomaly. I think it would be responsible to consider doing it, given that it's I hear that, whatever, if we put in $1 million, how much of it is really, how much is that going to really affect our liability? But it's a step in the right direction, and I know it's a moving target, but if we put some funds in it, let's say not $1 million, but even some funds to get it started, isn't that a good use, in our opinion, of, being fiscally responsible of the free cash? I mean, it's a one-time use, which fits into our policies. It could take pressure off an operating budget in the future if we had to cut our contribution down for whatever reason that we can't anticipate. So when I think about it, that's not, I think it might be a good idea to establish it at least and put in some funds. That's just my thoughts.
And I think then it does force the question every year to ask, should we put some more money into it? Mm-hmm. And you start thinking about the same thing with a capital fund. You have to ask the question every year.
I kind of like putting money, now that our general purpose stabilization fund is in excess of, and like a significant, comfortably over our floor. I think we say it has to be at least 5%, we're closer to 7%. I feel like the pension reserve fund seems to make more sense in some ways because it benefits us, but we're so worried that if we were to put money in general purpose stabilization and take it back out, then it just looks so bad.
Right.
So it's kind of like once that money goes there, it kind of isn't as helpful to us.
Okay.
So, but Anne, what do you think on this?
No, fine with what we've been talking about here. I think that it's a good idea.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion on this one then?
So I'll make a motion on just a pension? Do we want to?
Yeah, just a pension.
I would make a motion that we recommend to the selectmen that we have an article on the warrant this spring to establish a pension reserve fund.
And an article to fund
An article
it?
to fund in an amount TBD, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Is there
I-
a second
I
to
will
that
second
motion?
that.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes?
Alan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. That leaves us with capital reserve. As you will all recall, we requested that the selectmen put this warrant article on the warrant in the fall. They voted that idea down. From what I understand, the concerns were that it didn't make sense to put money into a fund if we were just going to turn around and take it out the next year. I don't agree with that, but I if that is something we want to recommend, I think we probably need to, in our memo, share some of our reasoning why we want to recommend such a fund.
So Tony gave us a memo when he gave a specific use of that fund, which was for the ladder truck. So I recall this memo here.
Was he actually proposing that the money go into establishing a capital reserve fund?
No,
No.
Well, hold on, let's see what he said.
he was just saying some of the needs that.
He said, establish a special purpose stabilization fund. And then over the course of several town meetings, until the final payment is due, attempt to deposit savings into the fund to make progress payments, reduce the ultimate borrowing costs, hopefully to zero. So that sounds to me like the capital stabilization fund.
I thought he literally meant just for the ladder truck.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, maybe this is a good idea, but maybe there'll be other good ideas that are similar that you want to use the same fund for, so. And this is something
I'm
we
not
could
sure
use.
in his memo, we took a strong position that we should set up a fund. I think he was looking more to set aside a certain amount of money for a ladder truck.
Yes.
Right, but I'm wondering if this is a way to do that. So,
Well, I mean, if you're gonna set aside a certain amount of money, free cash for a particular purpose, it has to go into a particular fund. You know, it can't just be, sitting there. You can't just appropriate $2 million to, just picking numbers out of the $2 million going into what?
The Alan
Yeah.
Slater Fund, where you get to decide, right?
oh, I see
Absolutely.
what you're saying, it would be, he's suggesting set up a ladder truck stabilization
Right.
fund essentially.
Right.
Okay.
I don't, in the end, that may be what you use it for, I don't know, but I think we have to set up a fund, with a particular dollar figure.
The only recommendation, again, if you're gonna set up a fund, you're gonna have to set up the parameters with it. So it's gonna be, what meets the requirements to be used out of that fund? Is it a ladder truck? Is it, and again, you have to be very careful and very, very specific. So I think that's what Tony was saying, well, we have some specific needs, maybe it makes sense to do a special purpose to offset future borrowing.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at it more as just setting up a special purpose fund to use for capital. I wasn't looking to be that specific on what type of capital you would use it for.
I think you wanna be specific if you do set up the fund.
Well, again, I don't want to set up a fund that says we're setting up a fund to pay for a ladder truck, as an example, or we're setting up a fund to pay for roofs. I want to set up a fund, for the need when we have a particular need and there aren't any other available buckets of money to use it. We may not have sufficient free cash, let's say 2 years from now in the fall, to be able to spend a lot of to use it for the type of things we've been using it for the last 2 or 3 falls. So I'd like to just set up the fund, for capital-related projects. I don't want to personally get specific as to which project we ought to use it for.
What if we put a dollar amount in there that, for capital things over this amount of money? And that way, you could.
Take something off the top, you mean?
No.
Like that, the capital project wouldn't be eligible to be funded from that unless it was at least $1 million project.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Okay, so everybody's talking about doing things in this building, right? Maybe. But if we did everything in this building, it would come up to millions and millions of dollars, correct?
Yes.
At least.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking about, is like, give them a level of need for one
Yeah.
specific thing. This is like a super fund.
I mean, I would assume that that the state has certain languages that would go into an article for to set up a special purpose fund. I would assume that
Correct.
there are certain
That's kind of where I'm
requirements.
going with the definitions need to be pretty
Well,
straightforward. You
I
can
mean-
say buildings, vehicle, you can make it that way, but you can't just say capital with a $1 million, because then you're gonna say, it's over $1 million, we're gonna use $1 million from capital, but now we have to go out and borrow, debt exclude, whatever it may be, so you're putting additional parameters on that. And I think the argument against right now is obviously we know we have immediate needs, and I hear what you're saying.
well, I mean, I get it. I mean, I think to me it's fiscal, insanity to have almost $30 million of free cash and not put a significant amount of money away for capital. I think that's not good long-term fiscal strategy. I mean, we could recommend an article that goes into the warrant, which is consistent with state requirements. And in the interim, we could work out the language in the motion that would maybe set some of these parameters that you're talking about, consistent with state requirements. But again, why they have issues with it, I don't know. But I think that it's important. Here's my bottom line. Whether you like it or I like it or they like it or don't like it, let town meeting make the decision. That's really where I'm coming from. Let town meeting decide what they want to do with this money. If they want to do it, fine. If they don't, town meeting has spoken.
Sarah?
I'm gonna piggyback off of Alan, because really we're representing town meetings. So I don't want to establish a capital reserve account just to do projects that should be in our regular capital outlay plan. In my mind, this is an account for some extraordinary items that, quite frankly, we know are coming down the road, that are going to be more than what is probably already in our 5-year capital outlay plan. So I'm not in favor of designating it for a specific item, but I understand the need to put parameters on it. But to me, this is just starting. It's putting it into basically a savings account so that we have some funds set aside from a very fortunate couple of years to spend in the future and hopefully relieve the burden on the residents, the taxpayers of Norway, so that we wouldn't have to go out and borrow additional funds.
I mean, another way to look at it would be that every year we spend free cash on a certain amount of capital items because partly because there are things you don't really want to bond, and partly because we have the free cash, so you might as well pay cash rather than borrowing. But obviously free cash goes up and down. So right now we have a lot of free cash. There may be a year in the future we have an unusually low amount of free cash, and yet we still have those same items we want to not
Right.
borrow for, but still need to do. So that would be another approach. I mean, one approach is specific projects, another approach would be projects of a certain dollar value, and a third would just be to stabilize the amount of spending from free cash for capital every year, in spite of variations in
Yeah.
either the number of projects or the amount of free cash.
And I think you've also noticed that since we've been spending more free cash for these projects in the fall town meetings, that our debt service has gone down. Which, again, every dollar less of debt service is $1 more for the general government or the school department.
Right. Right. So you might get a year when you have an unusually low amount of free cash, You don't want to borrow for that work, so we're either going to have to borrow for it, raise the debt service, or postpone the projects to another year. Neither one of those might be a good idea. So having a fund that gives you money to stabilize the amount you're spending every year would be, to me, a good idea. So,
Yeah.
but maybe we just need to have further discussion about, we want to have a fund of some sort. The question of what exactly it comprises is something that needs further discussion.
And I'm
Sure that-
assuming, Jeff, that if we do vote this, excuse me, and then have to come up with a motion that, through your sources, in the Department of Revenue, come up with the appropriate language
Yeah, sure.
consistent with state law.
Yeah, that's not,
Good, okay.
If,
like I said, we're not reinventing the wheel.
Okay.
It's in other communities, so.
I just don't want,
Copy someone
I just don't want, to hear, we don't know what the language is gonna be, so how can we vote on an article unless we know what, that type of stuff, so, okay.
Well, do you want a motion that I'll make a motion that we recommend to the selectmen that we put an article on the Springtown meeting for establishing a capital stabilization fund. Amount TBD.
All right, thank you,
I will-
Eric.
I will second that.
Seconded by Alan. Any further discussion? All right, let's put it to a vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Anne?
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
No.
Alan?
Yes,
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay, so that passes 4-1. All right. I think that kind of covers where we're at with what we want to discuss with the Board of Selectmen, right? Okay. Any other key points that you would like me to include in the first draft of the memo?
again, as I think I mentioned, I think it's really a case of let town meeting make the final decision.
With regard to capital reserve,
Right,
yes.
yeah.
With regard to our general fiscal health or anything like that, anything else that we would like to make sure that, I think we didn't really mention it today, that this, in order to balance the budget that we just approved, we will need to put in
Right.
$7.45 million in free cash.
Yep.
And our financial
not-
policies say that we should not be using one-time funds like free cash to be balancing the budget. I think we, as a group, have determined that we acknowledge that policy, but we believe, given the extraordinary amount of free cash that's available and the significant cuts in services that would be required to balance the budget without free cash, the prudent thing to do is to put in this $7.45 million in free cash. With the when I want to make a note that when we first started this budget process, we were talking about the possibility of perhaps as much as $10 million in free cash. So it's not like we said oh, let's party, let's do it all because we've got the money. We're very mindful of whatever we do this year is setting us up next year with a smaller amount of free cash to play with. And so that is a real concern.
Yeah, and I think it should be noted that while we're spending the $7.45 million to balance the budget, we're also spending another 2.6, potentially something number like that, on other things for free cash.
Right.
There will then be capital use of free cash in the fall.
Yes.
Obviously, we're going to get some more free cash, but again, we're not going to have $30 million of free cash next spring.
No.
It's going to be
Nowhere
a number
close to
more
it.
like
Oh, no.
10 or less. So
Right.
it's not that just the point you have to keep making is it's not a unlimited resource. It is a very limited resource.
Yeah. Sarah?
And I also think Alan has pointed out now, and you're better at this than I am with the numbers, that our 2.5% increase, our increase that we receive in revenue this year was taken up by increases in health insurance. I think that's an important thing. It's gone before we even really start adding things to the budget.
Yes.
Insurance
For, you know,
benefits,
referring to, Alan, you can state that more.
Right, I mean,
That-
I think if you look at the numbers, what we get from 2.5, as well as, I think even when you include new growth, that's eaten up almost entirely by the increases in health insurance and the increases in pensions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been said before, in a good year, it's 3.5 to 4% is what you're increasing your revenue by.
Yeah.
right.
So again, we're looking at health insurance and retirement that are greater than that. We
Yeah.
know our retirement is 4% per year, so right there, that's a big number.
Yeah, and our other revenues, including state aid, aren't keeping pace with that.
Right. And if I had to lay odds, I would say that it's unlikely that state aid is going to increase significantly in the coming years.
No.
And the state has to balance their budget and,
Right.
Yep.
yeah. Okay. Anything else that we would like to discuss with regard to special town meeting articles? All right. Let's take some time then to review the section 1 draft that that Jeff provided us. This is section 1 of the budget book. I think we're open to any feedback, whatever we want to discuss. And thank you so much, Jeff, to you and your team for getting us this draft in March. It's very exciting that it's not a scramble.
Usually it's the day before.
Right.
Oh, we gotta go
That's
to
good.
print.
Yeah.
So having all the budget discussions and kind of a consensus on the budget certainly helped out as well, so.
Yeah. So, I think I'll just, I mean, I can open the floor, see what you guys think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something you want to talk
Oh,
about?
I'm sorry, I thought you were starting.
I mean, I'm like laying it out. Whoever wants to jump in, go ahead and jump in.
Okay. I had one thing that goes to our long-term agenda, but there's a couple of things in our financial policy dashboard, which I think led me to saying we should probably later on in a meeting with a light agenda have a discussion about the financial policies.
Yep.
Yes,
specific-
definitely.
Yeah, specifically, we talk about amending the policy of definition of a capital item. We seem to say that a lot. And then,
We've approved it, and the
approved
school
it?
committee approved it,
and still with the selectmen?
and I think it's still sitting with the selectmen. I don't
Okay.
think it's been, like, that was done 18 months ago.
Yeah, I remember that being a while back.
I don't know where that stands, whether or not the selectmen ever took a vote on it. Do you
Yeah.
know, Jeff?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. There was one other.
So maybe I'll add
So
that to my
resend it.
memo.
There you go.
Resend it.
Yep. Sorry, I thought there was one other item. Go ahead.
would be
Well,
the- Would it? Why? That's not.
One thing is, I think that these check marks and X's are maybe a little too subtle. I think if there's something that we are not in compliance with, it should be bold or a different color or like something that indicates that it's a
Or pull
problem.
it to the top, create a separate page. Shade it, whatever we need to do to draw attention to it, because this is, I mean, when town meeting gets the book, it's a big book, there's a lot to review. These are a lot of words. I will admit, I did not look at this closely prior to being on the Finance Commission. And I think that in particular this year, we do need to highlight that, you know, we're using, I would also add that we make the notes a little bit more clear. I'm happy to try and add things to that, but I think I'm picking on free cash because obviously that's the biggest. I think we need to say we use $7.5 million worth of free cash, and our policy says we're not to use any. I also think under the fee policy, I know all of the boards have talked about this, but the board, no one has done a significant look at fees across town, whether it be in town, in some of our town departments and in the school department. Like, there are fees that have not gone up in quite a few years, and I don't know how we get that looked at, but I don't know if we can add some wording there.
That was.
I do remember that at some point in time, and not too far back, that we brought this up to the selectmen about their fees.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they are doing their fees on a regular basis. Now, I don't know what that comes down to nitty gritty, but I know that was a conversation that they did have with us a couple of years ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but.
I think in general, most departments are looking at their fees. I know, recreation is looking at it. We did the ambulance. We did bring to town meeting a bunch of the schedules of those. A lot of words nobody could understand or know what they were. I forget which one of them was, but
Yeah.
so it's being done. I think you're looking for a consolidated. Okay, how is this being done?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's why, again, I didn't change the language. As Sarah mentioned, a lot of this was just there for the previous years, so I
Okay.
didn't change anything.
Yeah.
So, the evaluation of how to effectively implement this policy is, again, we're having questions, so I guess we don't really know how to implement that policy.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess there
Outside
are
of
new
it being done,
services that we've added that we need to look at considering fees for the past few years.
Yeah, that was the second one that I wanted to highlight that we need to
Which
discuss.
one-
It says
which one is
we're under fee policy, says an evaluation on how to effectively implement this policy is ongoing, with very open-ended statements. Like,
Yeah.
when's that going to be
Yeah.
completed? What's the status? How long's it been going on?
Yeah.
And then similarly on the next page, the ARC thing. Yeah, says they've started a 5-year process to fully allocate the ARC to respective liabilities. So when did the 5 years start, and how are we doing? And again, I think the language was copied over, right?
Correct, and again, I'll say exactly what I said last year. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, so that's why I was
It's not a
thinking,
policy that we're not going to increase our OPEB each month. We just decreased it, so if we're adding people, and you're saying you're going to add to your OPEB expense, I don't think that's an effective policy.
Right.
Yeah.
It was an aspiration at one
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
We
Again,
thought
yeah.
things were going right.
Yeah, and again, I continue to say it every meeting, and my disdain for OPEB is out there. It doesn't make sense to me, so. I get the overall, but again, we want to fund our retirement first, and then we'll put that focus towards OPEB, so that's the plan. I don't think there needs to be something in your annual budget.
I just think as we're absorbing more grant positions this year, too, we've got to really.
Yeah, and I guess looking more towards that, and I think maybe it's a little bit different because we do have an allocation within the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. The Light Department does have an allocation. I think it's probably more getting the OPEB actuary to tell us what that overall liability is for those. And I believe they've done it for the Light Department, so I think that's already ongoing.
Is this something that they can do for us?
I believe it's already been done. I'll double check. Now I'm reading through. I think I might have confused the two. I think I was looking at the one below that for all new benefited positions. But I think, to Eric, to your point, the one above that in regards to the annual required contribution, that is being done. So that's why the check mark's there on that one.
okay,
Okay.
I just,
Yeah, sorry. So I was getting the two confused.
yeah, well,
So,
both of them need to be addressed. That's why, again, we're having a specific discussion about the policies and what we're doing about
so you
them.
do have in the enterprise fund and the light, we do have an allocation to OPEB. So that is being addressed. So I
Okay.
guess that's why there's a check there that one's being done. It's the one below that where the full-time positions, that's the one I don't understand.
Okay. All right. The next item we have is municipal finance terminology. That has not changed. And then the next item after that is the fiscal health dashboard. I would really love to see this as our first page, maybe tweaking it a little bit. I'm not opposed to that, but I feel like if people I want people to open this section and look at something that means something to them, and I feel like if they open the first section and they see just a lot of text, they feel like the whole section is a waste of their time.
Yep.
Okay, yep, makes sense.
I'm sorry, what did,
I want this page first. I think these, like, lots of text can be a little bit deeper in this section because I want people to be looking at how are we doing at an overall picture.
Okay.
But then I would like to highlight the financial policies we're not following.
I definitely agree with that as well.
And I would
Yes.
propose on this fiscal health dashboard, that we change the top right chart, because quite frankly, that's not, it doesn't, somehow we have to change that to a different type of bar, because, I mean, you can see very clearly that the school budget has increased on that. But I'm not a particularly visual person anyways, but then it's very hard to tell if town government, how much it's changed. It's obviously changed. I can't tell how much that's changed in comparison to other budgets. So we can just do a different type of bar chart there. And I mean, I can look at that to see if there's something.
And
I don't know who.
It wouldn't have to be a bar chart necessarily. It could be more, like similar to the pension OPEB. What's that? A line? I forget what they're called now.
Yep. I just think we need to change.
Or do you think, Sarah, maybe something more like the graph in the bottom left?
Reserves history.
Yeah, reserves history.
Yeah, perhaps something like that.
Yeah, I think that probably would cover it.
Right. And it's similar to what we were doing with revenue. You can see where, our real estate tax revenue is increasing, our state aid is increasing, our non-utility receipts are more or less flat.
Yeah, I think if you try to do it like the reserves, you're gonna run into a page problem. I think that's probably why it was done this way. But again, we can look to change that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, okay.
I think trying to fit everything on one page is most likely why that one is in that particular format.
And we can decide whether or not we think 6 graphs is appropriate. If we want to reduce this to 4 that we think are most important, I think a couple of one of the things I think we wanted to look at was this one on the bottom right, where we're like, okay, look, here we have, our policy says that there's a ceiling on how much we can have for debt service. That red line represents the ceiling. The blue bars represent where we're actually at, so we're comfortably below the ceiling. And then on the bottom left, there's a floor for how much we're supposed to have for our reserves, which is that blue line, and then those bars indicate that, we're comfortably above exceeding that blue line. So, I was hoping that we could do something that would be kind of visual like that. Honestly, I'm not sure how much. I think the OPEB and pension were on here because it's just such a big factor when ratings agencies are looking at us, like, how well is your pension funded? So that's why this was on here.
Very well until something else happens and it goes down again and then
Right.
we get up again. Yeah. We're good at that.
And then OPEB is just hopeless, according to this. So
Right. Yeah.
We'll never get above 5%.
So, any other thoughts on this? I mean, what do you guys think? Are there other things that would belong on here instead? What I was originally hoping for this dashboard would it be something that we could find a format we liked and then stick with it year after year, and you could really do like an apples to apples comparison looking each year. But I don't want to focus on the apples to apples if we're not looking at the right thing. So
Right.
Eric, your visual, how's?
Oh, with percentages.
Numbers,
Yeah.
yeah, it gives the dollar amounts, not percentages, but the dollar amounts.
Yeah, because this is dollar amounts.
yeah.
Just showing, just change it, just kind of puts a number. It's the same thing, but you can read the numbers on it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Except I do think, yeah. I mean, the other thing is we could think about not having this top middle graph, the budget allocation, and then putting putting that history across like 2 blocks.
Yeah, because the budget allocation is, sorry, it's on the summary receipts. That's
Right,
there.
right.
Also,
We've
we
got
can-
that
yeah.
already
Yeah,
in
we've
other
got in other
places.
places. I think that's
I
okay.
was just gonna say, didn't we have it in another place for two?
Yeah, so maybe we get rid of this one and then we could use something that would look kind of like the reserves history, but it would be for the budget history, but you'd have a little more like space there too.
Yeah, I mean, something like the reserves history, for, budget history, I think would be a little bit more striking just to see where the numbers, how the different departments relate to one another.
Again, I just took what I inherited.
No,
So
no,
whatever
no,
we
no.
want to change, I'm happy
Right,
to. So,
right,
no problem.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'd happily take your input if there's something you think we're missing on that page too, Jeff.
Right.
No, I think the budget allocation is, it probably needs to be bigger on the other page, because I think that's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a big item, especially where we've
Yeah.
been,
I've
where we're
gotten-
going, so.
I've gotten requests from town meeting members, what is the budget allocation? Not only what this is, but what's
I honestly
the
think that could be its
allocation of
own
shared
slide, to be
costs.
honest with you.
Yeah.
That could be
Yeah.
one of its own slides, because you're
Yeah.
opening the budget and saying, okay, here it is,
Yeah.
you're gonna have dollars, percentages.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
You know,
That makes-
what we did years ago, I believe these were all individual, and people complained that there was too many pages
Yeah, you don't want
in
too
the
much,
book.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why some of these have been pushed
Right.
together.
But, our vision in this was it was a fiscal health dashboard, the kind of things that rating agencies looked at. How much are revenues growing? How much are expenses growing? How much do we have in reserves? How much are we responsible for debt service? That kind of thing. But the budget allocation doesn't fit then, because that really has nothing to do with fiscal health
Yep.
in some ways.
And it's really duplicated in the last. piece of the
Right,
chart,
right.
Okay. I'm good with that.
So are you gonna put amounts in in the circular one, in the budget allocation one? Or are you going?
Yeah, but so
Okay.
is the direction to have that as its own slide? And
Yeah.
then Kind
Yeah.
of move the budget
Yeah.
history forecast over to be.
Yeah. Take up the available space.
Okay.
I know, Sarah, that you had a question before on local receipts, that maybe we should include something in here showing the status of local receipts, where we stand, given the, like the FY '25 budget.
Yeah, I think I always find it challenging to compare budget to budget, because it doesn't necessarily mean something, but I understand it's hard because we're only be so far through this fiscal year, but if there was something tremendously off, because we get so many questions related to why do we have so much free cash? And, we're following it closely, but it's not necessarily easy information for all town meeting members to find. So to make it as clear as possible, so that, to limit the surprises, it would be good, they'll call it a surprise, even though we knew free cash was going to be high and we discussed it in our meetings. But if we put in some type of year-to-date actual whatever through March, I don't even know if we'll be able to do it for the budget book, actually. I was kind of hoping it might be too late, just to see where we are. I don't know. It's just an idea. It's just frustrating. It's always been hard. I mean, it might be just the accountant in me. It's just hard to look at town meeting book that says budget to budget, because a budget's not real a
Right.
day after you start the year. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah.
'Cause things happen differently than what you think. I mean, it's only as good as your estimates, so.
So we're talking there about which slide?
On page 20?
Just-
One on page 20?
Yeah. My own opinion on that, and
Yeah.
again, where I came from
Yeah.
beforehand, our budget book, we had the prior full fiscal year, we had the year-to-date, which is exactly what Sarah's asking for,
Yeah.
through December.
Okay.
And then we had the budget. That's a drastic change to what you've presented here,
We
so.
used to have year-to-date,
um,
long time ago, long
But it's,
time
you know,
ago.
it creates a boatload of work, a boatload of formatting. I don't think you can just do it for local receipts, my own opinion, because then people are gonna be saying, well, why don't you do it for expenses as
Okay,
well?
yeah, you're right.
You
Yeah.
could, you know, whatever you want, but if you're only doing it for the revenue side, why aren't you doing it for the expenses? Because it is, you know, the surprise question is pretty easily answered. Number one, we're not gonna have a surprise this year. We're not seeing building permits and investment revenue significantly higher.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a little bit less of a focus. I don't know if we do I don't want to increase the size of the book either, because again, we're gonna
Yeah,
we're gonna
I get,
look to reduce this next year with the budget problems we're having too, so.
Yep.
well, maybe it's not something for this year, but once we start looking at stuff for next year, because I know this is your first full budget cycle that you've gone through, so.
And again,
But it's just,
Yeah, I mean, maybe at a minimum, if we don't put it in the budget book, you should have that information available, readily available in
We
case the
will, and
question's
again,
asked.
I'm providing you and the Board of Selectmen quarterly updates.
Right.
So
Right.
we
Which
have
we
those
get, yeah,
documents,
when
correct.
we get them,
Yeah.
and we
And
see.
again, we can talk, I don't know if there's a desire from Tony in that, but, you know, once we enhance the website, and maybe some of that stuff gets out there too.
I love that
Yeah,
idea.
you can even,
Longer term,
yeah,
so.
you can even hand a page like this out, you know, at the day of town meeting, if
Yeah.
you
Again, I
decide we
know
want
he's,
to
you
do
know,
that.
he's, I haven't talked to him at all about it. I
Yeah.
know he's looking to enhance that at some point, because
Okay.
we need to, but that's where this probably belongs.
Yeah.
Because again,
Okay.
this is your budget book.
Yeah.
It's tough to say, well, it's a status as well.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
One thing we could consider is that perhaps we expand the pink sheet a little bit, right? The pink sheet is like kind of FinCom's final message to town meeting before we actually walk in the door. And it's specifically has to include our recommendations for motions, but if we felt it was interesting to say, like, hot off the presses, we have third quarter report, and some key information from that, we could possibly beef up the pink sheet a little bit at some point.
not a bad idea.
You would have 6 month report, and there's no way we're gonna get a third quarter report in that time frame.
Well, the pink
Yeah.
sheet wouldn't be voted on until the end of April.
Yeah, true, okay, maybe.
Right, I was trying to give you a little more time than putting it in the budget book.
Possibly, yeah.
I think
Possibly,
maybe
but Again, this year is unique. I think, that we got done
May
pretty
1st, we're
Yeah.
supposed to vote on the pink sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had your hand up when I sidetracked
No,
us.
that's okay. When I was looking at these receipts, I was looking at the jet fuel thing, and I'm sorry because it sort of isn't in here. It shouldn't be asking this question now. I should have tried it earlier. But the jet fuel, when we did the 25 budget, it was 40,000, and then we're going up to 58. But the other numbers are so crazy in this whole, 36, 64, 70, then 40, then 58.
It's
Well, remember when-
5% on a 10 jet fuel gallon, so it fluctuates with the price of gas, fluctuates with the activity down the airport as well, so.
And remember, these are our projected numbers, right? And when we made the FY25 projection, we were looking back at 21, 22, and 23. And I think 21 in particular was really impacted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I think some of it is we're just kind of coming out of that because we're doing a rolling average,
Yeah,
basically.
But I'm seeing 23 and 24 going up, and then we go down $30,000.
Well, but remember when we set the 25 number, we didn't have access to the 24 number. We were looking back at the 22 and the 23 number.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, we had 1 year of 37 and 1 year of 64. 40 seems like a reasonable estimate.
And again, remember, this year's the year we kind of looked at it a little bit differently as well, so kind of looking at that 90% of 3-year average, which is where you want to be ultimately on most of them.
Right.
And again, that's a financial policy, is 90% of the previous year, so.
Right.
Well, that number will probably escalate up next year as well if we have a good year this year.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Well, we're talking
Can
about
I-
local, sorry.
Oh, all right, I was gonna ask us if we could jump back a bit, but.
Okay, well, we're
but
talking
no,
about
if
local
you're-
receipts.
Yes, while we're talking about local
Okay.
receipts.
We have a definition here, or we on the assumptions, we talk about estimated local receipts, okay, and we talk about fines, fees, so on and so
What
forth.
page are you on?
I'm on 5. We just, okay. If you go to page 10, it has the line local receipts, but that local receipts includes state aid and property taxes. This discussion of local receipts does not include taxes
Well,
and
it's a
state
little
aid.
confusing because I think this just, the one in gray shouldn't be, say, local receipts. I think the one, because you see the one above that actually says local receipts. Which
Right,
is-
but then local receipts and is separate from pilots and indirect charges, but this one includes pilots.
I know,
So we're being,
it's-
can we be consistent about what we call local receipts? So maybe this should just say receipts.
Or maybe it all should, it's really
Or-
income, really, when everything's said and
Well,
done.
see, at the bottom, we have total receipts.
Mhm.
And then we have,
Yeah, I think that local
Top.
receipts probably should say total revenue or something. That's-
Yeah.
well, it's not, but see, it's not total revenue, because then we've got these other revenues down here. Or, use of,
Yeah, I'll come up with a name for it.
okay,
Okay.
just, we could do that, because, yeah, then on page 20, it looked like it made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so I think that's a good point. All right, so let's just go page by page again. We've talked page 6, well, page 7, I think looks good, right? This is our typical tax levy
Yeah.
thing that we do every year, and
Yeah.
I assume that's correct.
yeah.
Um,
One small question. Coakley Middle School, why did the amount go up? Shouldn't it be going down every year slightly?
No, that's a level debt service, so that's how it goes.
Because it's a,
So it's going to change, fluctuate minimally each year, but when the bonds were offered, they were sold as level debt service, not level principal, which then you see
right.
that.
The high school is level principal, this is level total payment essentially.
Correct.
And it's just timing or something?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's 7.
That's a good point. All right, so page 8, I don't like the title of this, right? Like fiscal year 2025 forecast. So it should at least be 26. And I don't think, but forecast isn't really the right word either. I think it's maybe trends or like recommendation?
Proposal.
Yeah, proposal? Okay.
And then where it says up here, it says, this should be, it says current, but it should say budget, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, yeah.
And then under fiscal '24, there's $43 million for local receipts. That's wrong.
No, it's not.
Because if that's the budget, I have,
Oh, that's.
I think it's a total of the
so
line
final,
above plus
yeah.
it.
I think, yeah.
Where
I
are
think
you?
it's 20 something. So right under fiscal '24 budget,
Yeah.
local receipts, it says 43 million. Because
So I
that
guess,
does
yeah,
not.
so it's confusing. So do we want to just leave it as budgets in here? Because that's the, like if you look at the over-under, it's showing you kind of the status of the year, so it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, well,
as to what the purpose of this
these
is.
numbers here didn't match what was on page 10.
Yeah.
So that was confusing me also.
So do we want this just to be comparison of budgets?
Yeah, comparison of budgets, that's,
Yeah.
Jeez, I was really looking forward to putting my feet up tomorrow, you know.
Sorry.
it doesn't all have to be fixed tomorrow.
No, it's all easy stuff. It's easy.
Yeah, because I've looked at, this was the fiscal '24 one. So
Yes,
this
some of them
line
changed.
here, 22, 22,
Again, I
20.
kind of looked at this and said, you know what? I didn't even think about it being the budget to budget. I looked at this saying we should probably update these to current, to actuals, because that's really, I think that gets back to what
Okay.
we were talking about earlier. If you're looking at this page, to me, this would be more valuable to show the actuals,
Yeah.
the budget, and then the proposal.
Okay, yeah, because this
Okay.
number looked like the sum of those two numbers, so.
Okay,
So-
so then you want to go back and change FY '22 and '23
If you wanna change
and
those to
'24
actuals.
all to actuals?
That's fine.
Whatever we do, I'm okay with it either way, as long as it's consistent.
Yes.
So is that what we're doing?
I think
Going
that gets
back.
to Sarah's point too, is then
Yeah.
you're kind of, there's your slide to show you your revenue. It's
Right,
20, yes, it's 24, it's not showing you 25 year-to-date, but it's at least giving you the most recent
Right.
4-year history.
Okay.
yes. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
I think that kind of gets in, yeah, what gets into your slide 10 is your detailed revenue summary, which is your actual. So it's almost like you, do you want to get, I don't want to say you want to get rid of that, but you can get rid of that slide if we're going to go actual on the other.
Right.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
seems like it's redundant,
This is
yeah.
a slide that's been
This is
in the-
easier to
Alright.
read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right, so slide
Yeah.
9, no, we just skipped over 9. We're gonna take this thing, pie chart, and make it bigger. It's gonna like take up its own page, right? And we're
So
gonna
the one-
put
so the one
numbers in
from-
there.
The one from the earlier page is we want to make that its own page in the beginning, right?
Right,
So what do you want to do with this one then? This is your.
then we
need it
don't
twice.
necessarily need this one, yeah, we don't need
Yeah.
it twice. But wherever we have it, I wanna make sure that it actually has percentages or dollars amounts, or ideally both.
Up above.
Yeah. Okay. So then so basically we have this
You
like,
know what, I like this here. I'm sorry.
so we basically have this teeny tiny thing,
Yeah, I
like, and then 2 pages of text that,
Okay.
like, are detailed that you can read more easily, right? Is that what
Yes.
we're planning?
Yeah.
10, 11.
So, but Anne, were you saying you wanted to keep this pie chart on this page?
I liked it on that page. I think that, you know, we're giving them the numbers and everything, and then they can see it on the pie chart.
Do you want me to add percentages on
It
this one,
needs
just so it's,
dollars and percentages on it, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. We can just do the other one, same as this one, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know, I'm looking at the numbers and I said, well, you know, how much of the pie you getting?
Alright, so then, the detail revenue summary. Okay. This is a little confusing because of, as you said, Eric, the whole like, sometimes local receipts includes the pilot, sometimes it
Right,
doesn't.
yeah, change that local receipts to something else, and I think that solves the problem.
The gray, the piece of the gray, right?
Yeah, the local receipts in gray. And then water and sewer is just shown here for reference, or, because we don't show electric or broadband.
Correct, just reference.
Okay, do we need to show it?
We do include the water sewer in the budget. We do,
Oh, still? That's-
it's in the supporting schedules.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you'd have to put it there, okay, but we don't show the light department,
Correct.
so, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Next one, we're on page 11. This one, we're gonna, this is
have
the
a
pink
line
sheet,
here.
basically, we're gonna have to talk a lot more about this one.
Yep.
And maybe this, I'm not sure this, I think the proposed use at special town meeting, I would recommend we not put this in the budget book because we're gonna send out a pink sheet with the final number. Right, we haven't voted on this yet. So the stabilization fund balances and stuff like that we could put in. But I don't think this,
This almost, the entire page should almost go in think sheets.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know, again, for me, it's, because Alan did mention earlier tonight, people are out there saying we have $29 million of free cash. But we only have 20 right now.
Right,
We're gonna use some at special town meeting, which, yes, it's in the pink sheets or whatever sheet. And we're gonna propose to use some in annual, so that will give you a snapshot of where you'll end up if you use that all.
so maybe, okay, I agree with that, but what if I'm not comfortable with putting in about anything about special town meeting because we're not gonna take a vote before these, budget books have to go out. So maybe we put in, but we have already voted on a recommendation for the annual town meeting. So maybe we could put that in and then we could say balances after annual town meeting and note that that's before special.
Right, but then the
Okay.
pink sheets can start with that, add the
Yeah.
special town meeting and maybe mention something about what's likely to happen in the fall or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
Okay, it's almost like you need to show this twice. So you put it once in the budget book, and then you the updated version of the pink sheets. Now, you're gonna see it in one place or the other. if not
Right,
both.
right, okay.
I think that's what we did last year. I think I just put that on there tonight for.
For discussion
I think last
purposes?
year we took it out as
Right,
well.
okay, all right, great. All right. Okay,
Page 12.
stabilization fund, I think we like that, right?
Just a quick question.
Straightforward.
Why did we have negative numbers? Was that because we had, the interest rate was so low, we charged fees?
No, so prior to Alex and I making the determination, some of this was invested in the stock market. So you actually lost
We
money.
actually lost
And I'm
money.
not- I am not, under my watch, I'm not bringing that to town meeting and saying we lost money in our stabilization fund. So that was one of the first things when I got here, sat down with Alex and we started going through what's invested in with equity exposure versus what's invested with, you know, not a guaranteed investment rate, but an interest rate that you're going to get.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Free cash slide, that makes sense.
Oh, that looks so good.
Tax levy,
Yeah,
that
could we
makes sense.
Just add single-family residential property values in the title, just to overemphasize it.
Okay, it's all in, you want to.
Yeah, it's in there, but just. So,
Wait a minute, where are you gonna add the word single family?
right here at the, in the
But
title.
that's not, because,
Because
is
it's
it
all
only
sing-
single family?
It's only
It's
single
not-
family. Yeah,
Do you want me to put it in the title, take out the single-family reference below?
No, I think I'd put it everywhere.
yeah, just to emphasize it.
I didn't even, yeah, okay.
And the state does that too on their website, they talk about single families, so it's like, okay.
Okay, then next page is new growth.
I thought we should just add where it says, we use $900,000 in projection, just add for fiscal '26. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Yep.
That is kind of our default anyway, but we did decide for this year to go with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah. All right. Page 16. Collected property taxes as a percentage of net tax levy.
So there's a column in here, annual levy percent increase, which made no sense to me.
Which one is this?
So right
The
here,
second to the last.
it's page 16. Yeah, right there, yeah. There's this column here. Something went up 18%, but this did not go up 18%, so. What is that referring to? If it went up 18%, we'd have no problems, but.
And that's taking the tax, so, you know, that's taking that year, so this is gonna be.
Just
Yeah,
looking at
just
the
change the
wrong
formula.
years.
Yep.
Okay.
I just didn't update the formula.
Okay, and then what does trial balance mean?
They gotta take that out, because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Trial balance is what we run, just one of our reports that
Okay.
we run, but it's tax recap, we could say, I mean, source should be just accounting office, to be
Right.
honest with you. But
Okay,
that's been in there, I think, my predecessor, that's what she kind of backed into a lot of the reports.
okay, and these are all fiscal years, not calendar
Yes.
years? Okay.
Yes.
Didn't know if we should say FY, say fiscal year up here. In the title, yeah.
Yeah. So the significant jump from FY '23 to FY '24 is because of the override, the middle school override?
No, it's a formula
That's
error.
formula, it's 10%, 9.99, when I fixed the formula.
But
We can look to it.
But did our tax levy go up that much between FY '23 and FY '24? We brought in an extra $10 million in,
That was the Coakley.
that's what I just
Yes,
asked.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's the override.
Okay.
I'm wondering
So was
if,
that the
um,
override? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What are those numbers now? Okay, that looks much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we have the state aid, history of local aid. Okay. And then we have a graph that goes with it. And so the percent there is aid, the state aid in relation to our net revenue.
Correct.
So the state, back in FY '22, the state was contributing about $12 million towards our revenues, and now it's like 14.9, 14.7,
14.8.
14.8. Oh, I see where that number is. Okay.
Is there a way to get the percent up by the line and the dollars down by the, like,
Yeah, I'll work
see what I'm
on it.
saying? Yeah,
Not
just,
exactly, yeah.
I know, it's the Excel stuff, yeah.
Yeah, no, but see, the problem is, it can be a little bit confusing, you can't really read it, that's why I kind of put them to the side.
Okay, yeah, if you could clear that up. that would be-
Okay. Then we have the state aid trend.
It's just kind of a repeat, right?
Yeah, this feels like it's the same. I mean,
I mean, other than
I
a go-
like number 19. Page 19
Yeah.
better.
rather than page 17 or 18.
18.
Yeah, I like 18. I think 18 is good.
I mean, I like 17 and 18.
So no changes there.
I do see the visual appeal of 19 but I like the percent. I think is a really interesting
Okay.
number as well. But I guess it's harder to see what's happening with state aid because it's smaller, but
Yeah, it's just giving you the detail on 19.
you know what maybe the problem with this is, or at least my thoughts on this problem, is that
19 should be 18.
well, but maybe we're just trying to do too many things all in this one chart. We have a whole page. Maybe it should be two charts, one, because the percentage thing could be on its own chart. Then it would make it easy, like right below on the same like X axes, but a totally separate Y axis. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it might be, because it does clash here, so just did a graph.
I know Ann likes 19, but 19 to me is just. 18 has it, I mean, you see the graphical version, it's kind of, yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree, I like 19 too, but
So does 19 include, other than being more visually appealing, which it definitely is there anything that's included in 19 that isn't already in 17 and 18?
The only thing that's there, I think, is the percentage increase on a yearly, from 25 to 26. Other than that, there's
Yeah.
really nothing
Well, 19's
else.
giving you the breakdown of it, so it's giving you your education, your general government,
Yeah.
then it's telling you your charges. So
Yeah.
19's a better
Yeah,
picture of state aid.
yeah. So 17, on the other hand, I think that gives the specifics on
Like each- yeah.
what bucket you're
Yeah.
getting. I mean, I think people want to know that, how much you get, how much
From
is
each
chapter
thing,
78 versus everything else.
I
But
don't
I
have a
think-
problem
but I think-
with 17.
Yeah, but I think the graph is, again, that's a lot of people are gonna be asking, what percentage of your budget is
Yeah,
potentially at risk, right? State aid, federal
Right.
aid,
I mean,
whatever it may be, so that's.
it's fine to me.
could we take the graph line off of 18 and put the percentages on 19? And then it would clash?
I mean, we don't have to change any of them. Leave them as they are. I mean, I I like the percentages on 18. I think it gives a full picture, like you're,
Okay,
I would agree with Sarah.
Okay, we'll leave it as is. All
leave it, yep.
right, so 19 shows us a slightly different picture, so, all right, and then we get into, uh, 20, where we get to the local receipts thing. What would you guys think about taking the payment in lieu of taxes and moving it into, like, just below local receipts and then summing them up so that, because sometimes our local receipts number includes payment of local pilots and sometimes it doesn't, and it gets really hard to subtract it back out.
So what do you want to do with it?
I want to take this line item,
Yeah,
remove it from this subtotal, move it down here, and then add a new total that is local receipts plus pilot.
okay, I like that.
All right.
Just have to watch your definition, because your definition says it includes pilots.
Right. So maybe this other definition is like non-pilot local receipts, you know?
No, just say subtotal.
Right, exactly.
Just say subtotal, and then pilots, and then total local receipts.
Yeah. Okay. I think it'll, because we keep getting questions about why doesn't this match. I'm hoping it's going to make it easier for people to follow where those two different numbers come from. All right.
if we fix our dashboard, I don't think we need this page.
I agree.
21?
Yeah.
I would agree.
Okay.
I think this components of general government is interesting.
I do. I'm not sure this is the place for it. I mean, I think we may want to put it in a different place in this presentation. In this, I don't know.
No, I certainly think it's useful information. Again, you know, this is sort of like a dashboard and trend, so I don't know where else it
Yeah,
would
I
go.
put it more, our dashboard may have to be 2 pages. That's kind of.
Yeah,
Again, this, in my mind, if we're gonna do a separate one for the overall budget categories, this could be the next page for general government.
Right.
yeah.
So just
Yeah.
move it to page
Move it up.
6 or 7 or whatever that is, right after the other one we just
That's
created.
what I thought,
Yeah.
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 Okay. And then debt service.
The only comment I had on this one is just, every other chart we do it in millions, this one's in thousands. Can we just make it in millions to be consistent?
Yeah, change the source. Just because you start putting a lot of numbers on there. But not a problem.
Yeah, it should make the numbers on the left-hand column smaller.
Right.
Yeah, I mean-
25, 20, 15, it's just easier to read. and-
Yeah, I mean, having said all of that, I don't want people to get the impression, oh, our debt service is going way down, you know, in the years. That's because we're not adding any additional future debt service onto this particular.
Right. This is like what
Yeah.
we're already committed to.
Right,
Yeah.
Like if we do nothing new, we're still committed to this,
right,
but we know we're going to do more.
right.
Yeah, and I
Should we just add a note in the title or something, just based on existing commitments or something like that? or-
Yeah, that's all, yeah.
do,
Yeah, add in
you don't
millions.
wanna just,
I don't even know if I'd put in this page. I think it's misleading. even if
I
you
think
change
it's
the
misleading
title.
too.
I'm okay with ditching it, especially since I think it's a really important something for us to consider when we're voting on capital outlay. But we're now voting on capital outlay in the fall, so maybe this is a slide that needs to come in
There
the
you go.
fall, and then we're really talking about
Okay,
we're
Where
but
we
we're
are.
not going to be recommending any borrowing
Right,
at this in May,
okay.
Right,
right?
okay, good.
to the fall.
Just some school stuff, but not a lot. Or that's free cash.
That's free cash. Yeah.
Okay, all
Free
right,
cash.
out.
Out. Okay,
All right.
good with that.
Well, Jeff, thank you so
I
much.
think we took 2 out and added 1, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, one page down. Just saved 11 cents.
All right. And Sarah, you're gonna work a little bit, you were gonna look a little bit more at some of the descriptions on the financial policies. And
Yeah.
I will hunt down where things stand with the capital outlay policy. I feel like this is a little Groundhog Day, but,
Okay.
Oh.
Something dawned on me, and I'll talk to you about it now, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
because it is about the policies. When we did the OPEB policies, the way it was being presented, and I don't even know what board I was on when we did this, but there was a feeling that, okay, we're putting this money for people that have already gone through the system, so to speak. But that we then wanted any new employee to start taking money out or whatever it has to do. And that's how this came about, this paragraph. I can try to find the original. This is different than what the original one was. So I think it would make more sense to people if I could find the original process for this.
You're saying something different than what's in the financial policies.
What's in here. I don't know, I haven't checked the policies.
I got the policies right here, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think I understand the intent is if we're adding the 5 bodies in the schools, for example,
yes,
then you're gonna wanna increase your OPEB contribution. Well, we
Right.
just decreased it by 100,000,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
yeah.
We're not gonna be able to follow that. Again, it's not that important. Again, I'll get on my horse on OPEB. We're paying retiree benefits right now out of our retirement line. We're not even tapping into an OPEB fund. When are you gonna be able to tap into your OPEB fund? I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's silly.
right. And it,
So again, once
I
you
mean,
fund your
having-
retirement,
having-
then your OPEB's gonna have that $4, $5, $6 million, whatever it is, can be then.
I mean,
into that.
having 7, you said that, does that mean, almost it sounds like when we fully fund retirement in 2039, are you saying we don't even need OPEB anymore?
No, then you'll have to fund the OPEB, because now you'll have the benefits paying out of that.
Right.
All right, okay, all right, I was a
Sorry,
little bit
I think you
confused.
retirement, I meant health insurance. Sorry,
Okay, all
sorry,
right,
I
okay,
mean
all right.
retirement.
Okay.
So
all
yeah,
right.
so right now we're paying for employees plus retirees
Right.
in health insurance.
Yeah, right,
Well, if OPEB makes sense and you had funding in that, you'd be taking the retirees out of that funding.
sure,
Right.
yeah,
When are we ever gonna get to that point?
not for a while.
Exactly.
Which town was it that spent like $100 million in bond funds to pay for OPEB? Was it Wellesley?
I believe they did do something, yes.
Yeah, some ridiculous
I know
number
that-
to
I
pay
know
for
some-
that.
Some towns have done pension bonds out
Yeah.
there, which pension and OPEB bonds are the two worst.
Yeah.
Because then you're locked into that funding.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
all right. Any other topics for discussion?
I'll check and see what I find.
Nope.
All right.
Do you want to just, in terms of long-term agenda, can we have?
Yes, we can certainly talk about long-term agenda.
Yeah, just, I wanted to, is there a meeting with a light agenda that we could put financial policies on?
I tried that for 3 years.
And we spent a long time going through the capital outlay policy, and we got it all done. And it went through capital outlay, it went through FinCom. Like we've done yeah.
Maybe after the beginning of the fiscal year?
It's fine with me, it doesn't have, not urgent, it's just,
Yeah, I mean, this long-term agenda ends in July, because we like typically do it annually. But yeah, it is something we could put in the
yeah. For a future meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
in July.
July would be a good thing, because we don't actually have anybody usually coming in to see us and
Right.
stuff like that. It's just the closing of the
Fiscal year.
school year. That usually doesn't take too long. I hope.
No, it's stuff we have to do, so.
Right. Okay, so we'll add that to the long-term agenda. Action items and follow-up. I'm gonna figure out what's going on with the capital outlay policy. I'm gonna start a draft of a memo. Sarah has volunteered to help me with that, so that's good. And Sarah's gonna look at some of the policy comments in the town meeting book, which is all gonna be feeding into the policy discussion. And then,
When does the budget,
go ahead.
You froze.
Oh, she froze. Okay.
Hold that thought.
Oh, are you back yet?
I'm back, so when does the budget book go to print? Sorry.
We had said that we were going to approve the budget book at our April 10th meeting.
Okay.
And I think we thought that that was going to give us plenty of time to go to
Print.
That's
print.
it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So again, all you're really approving is the updated, this section, right? I mean, because the rest of the book's gonna be the same. It's,
well, I mean, it's like, we've approved the budget, so we'll check and
Yeah.
make sure that the budget seems to match what we
Yeah, okay.
voted on and stuff like that. Like, we'll want to see the whole book, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we need to.
Yeah, the
We're
final
not going to
proof.
go through it page by page
No.
like we did tonight. Yeah.
John's working on the back pages. We've tried to streamline and tried to make it a little bit more efficient, I think. In the
Okay.
past, some departments have really wrote a book.
Yeah.
We're trying to
Yeah.
streamline it, trying to get it to, 5 things you did this year, 5 things you want to do next year. Go forward from there. Shouldn't be everything that you did, each month.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Other action items, I think just, obviously Jeff is still working on the budget book and stuff like that, but there's nothing in particular. Okay. Then if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you, Alan. Second by Eric. And we'll vote. Sarah,
Yes.
Ann,
Yep.
Alan,
Yes.
Eric.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Thank you.